Good. And we're recording. Good. So before I introduce our presenter, I'd also like to welcome Ms Amalsha Galhenage, who is our very not so secret weapon at the ADA. She does a lot of our logistics, and you would have had a welcoming email from her also at some point. And she will also be sharing the information with you after the webinar. So today, our webinar, aimed at our audience of current and prospective PhDs, supervisors, and researchers in general, is presented by Professor Sebastian Kernbach. The prof title is new, congratulations. Design your home office, survive, come alive, and thrive working from home. So just a little bit about Sebastian. He's an assistant professor at the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland and a visiting fellow at Stanford University. He is a guest professor at the Central University of Beijing and a presenter at the African Doctoral Academy since 2017, and as well as the Stellenbosch University Business School MBA program from last year. More recently, we have gone online, so unfortunately he hasn't been able to come down to Stellenbosch and have some of our good wine, but we hope again sometime soon. So about him, his interests are knowledge visualization, storytelling, creativity, and life design. He has founded the Visual Collaboration Lab and Life Design Lab at the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland, and has authored the award-winning book Meet Up, as well as the book Life Design. And the book that I've enjoyed reading recently was Creativity and Design, which was published in end of 2019, beginning of 2020. We had it at the ADA Summer School last year. So I'll be posting some of these links in the chat. We'll also share it by email. And so over to you, Prof. You've got the floor until about 1 o'clock, 10 past 1, and after that we'll start the Q&A. You will explain, please, also that our delegates should put their questions in the chat so we can collate it and ask it to you at the end.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Corina, for your kind and nice introduction, and welcome everyone here from snowy Switzerland. It's just finished snowing today here in Zurich, and I'm very much looking forward to the session with you. And I don't want to be too esoteric here, but this session is only about one thing, and this is you, okay? So whether you are in the beginning of your PhD or thinking about doing a PhD, you're in the middle of it, towards the end, you have done it already. Maybe you are also supervisor of PhD students, maybe also presenter of the ADA. So I hope that this will really equip you with some tips and tricks and tools that help you to, as Corina has said, survive, come alive, and maybe even thrive working from home, that we have all been able to participate in due to the global pandemic. But over the last year, I've been working with lots of organizations like the United Nations, Nike, European Central Bank, and various universities like Stellenbosch, but also Stanford and the University of Beijing. And I'm really hoping that the things we're going to look at, both from the book, as Corina just mentioned, Creativity and Research, what can we do as researchers? And of course, if we want to make a new innovative way of working from home, we might not even look into other researchers, but we might also look into other people who are really experts in working from home, which is somebody I've talked to who I think is a real expert in working from home, which is an astronaut, right? Somebody who lived a year in space. And I think they can really say or sing a song about isolation and working in a very, very particular environment. So usually whenever people see the picture, they like reappreciate their own home offices. So that's somebody we're going to looking into. And we also look into what can we learn from an Olympic gold medalist? What are her pieces of advice for us working from home? And we will also look into 6-year-old Elia and what she can tell us of advice to be more productive in the home office on one hand, but also really to stay emotionally and mentally healthy as we do our research and our lives in general. As I mentioned before, for those who came in a bit later, I would invite you to take at least one piece of paper, if not two, and I will invite you in a moment to also write down your own takeaways, and if you like, stay hydrated with some water, tea, or coffee. Now I'm going to share some slides in a moment, and you will see me also draw with a pen on the slides. And I can tell you already that you will get all the slides, including my drawings, for your own records, okay? So you will get the slides, and as Corina and Amalsha have said, if you do have questions throughout the session, please feel free to write them instantly in the chat, and then we collect them, and towards the end we have plenty of time to then also have a Q&A session with your questions, okay? Now with that, I'm happy to share my screen here, and again, invite you to write down your own takeaways. So this is design your home office, and some people even put the home in the meantime around the notion of home, because people say you can use it in your home office, but you can also use it way beyond, right? And if you want to have one sheet of paper, you might want to give it a headline and call it your takeaways, right? Maybe your takeaways. Maybe you want to write down your takeaways from our session, which is about design your home office. Design, hopefully your handwriting is better than mine. I'm just trying here. And then you might have something like, what is your nice to have on the left-hand side, and what is your need to know, right, on the right-hand side? These are two options you can write down. And whenever you hear something, you say, oh, this is nice to have. Oh, this is kind of in between. Oh my God, this is really a need to know, right? Because unfortunately, we will be only together here today for an hour or an hour and a half, but hopefully these things will help you also afterwards. So also tomorrow, next week. And please also don't forget, whatever we do here together, you might want to use for yourself, but you also might want to use for family members, for the community. If you're supervising PhD students, you might want to use this for supervision, because in the end, we are trying to use the innovation method design thinking and insights from positive psychology to be more productive on one hand. But I would also say it's not only about productivity, it's also about our well-being and literally staying sane, right? As in staying mentally healthy. I like to call this more healthy performance, right? Because we are performing in our research or teaching or any other activities, but it's healthy because it's in line with us, and it's also we're not exhausting ourselves. And then we will finish today with our very personal resilience portfolio, right? This is what we're gonna finish with today. And as Corina said, I'm Sebastian. I'm gladly joining the African Doctor Academy every year now for a couple of years, running the Productive PhD as a course, and also Design Your Academic Future. And what you can see today is almost like an essence. It's a small version and a mix of these two courses. And of course, if you're interested, and next time the courses are on, feel free to join those full week courses, 5-day courses. And as she mentioned as well, I'm a visiting fellow at Stanford, and recently also working in a program called Creativity and Research Scholars at Stanford. And this one is dedicated to how can we make remote work, so working from home, more productive and more emotionally healthy. So I'm happy to give you a 1-hour summary of this. Now let's start with what's going on in the world. What is happening? People have to work from home, and what are the challenges that people have, or what are potential struggles? And I took a survey from the World Economic Forum. And what's interesting here is that the #1 struggle people seem to have is unplugging after work, because there is a blurred line between work and personal life. This is interesting because just a year ago, I was asked by organizations, how can I make sure people actually work from home? How do I make sure my PhD students actually do their things? And now, being a year later, people actually even work too much, and they have a hard time to take breaks and to kind of like celebrate also the finish of the day, right? Some people also suffer from loneliness, not only when people live by themselves, but even when they live with family members or other people. They feel like a disconnect with their research teams, for example, or with other people. Then the whole notion of collaborating and communicating, that seems to be an issue as well. I mean, talking about Zoom that we're having now on, email, etc. Having distractions at home, and also staying motivated. And to be honest, I'm running lots of these workshops these days, 1-hour session, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. And sometimes it's really literally about getting out of bed in the morning, right? That we might have. So we see it's a global phenomenon, and we do have these challenges. At the same time, it's nice to see all those challenges, but how about you guys? What are your challenges when you're working from home? And let's use a very nice tool, which is a tool called Mentimeter, and let's understand what are your challenges working from home. Okay, and this is anonymous, so you can be very open. And you might either put in menti.com, as you can see it here on the left-hand side, either 900. That's one option you can do, or you can also use the QR code on the right-hand side. Okay, so just take a moment and have us understand what are your challenges working from home these days. Yes, so for those who came in a bit later, feel free to take a piece of paper so you can write down your own takeaways and a glass of water to stay hydrated. And now we are collecting from the audience, what are your challenges working from home, okay? So what are your challenges? Some people have already submitted it. Let me just wait for a second so we have a bit more people tuning in here. It's a great community of more than 100 people now on the call, which is great. And please take a moment to write down what is one or two or three challenges that you have as you are working from home, okay? Let's just see how this cloud is growing. I think over a third have already transmitted their answers here, which is great. And please keep going, okay? Please keep going, because I will make a screenshot from all your contributions, and then I will also put this into the presentation, okay? So please use the Menti interface, and we can see now that the cloud is growing. We can see now it's almost 50 people. Distractions and motivation and switching off, right? Switching off maybe relaxation. We also see motivation, lack of motivation, staying focused, disconnecting after work, right? As we have just seen it also in the survey results. And the answers are still coming in. Also, space seems to be an issue, and loneliness as well. So you see, and even here on the side, disconnecting after work, switching off, distractions. All right, so we captured quite some input here. And you will also see that it's quite easy to mention all the things that are challenges for us, right? And I think it's also good to understand what our challenges are. And I'm glad, well, not glad, but I'm kind of glad to say that most of the things I see here, we will find a way to better deal with them, okay? We will find a way to better deal with distractions. We will also find a way to better disconnect after work and for switching off, okay? So it's one thing to deal with our challenges. And it's great that we're collecting this, because we are not, it's not just ourselves. We see that everybody has certain challenges. And at the same time, a good starting point for being resilient is also to understand what is working well. I know we have challenges, but what is working well? So let's put next to the challenges we have, let's also make us aware of what is actually working well in the home office, okay? And you might want to use that same interface if you're still on it, or you can reconnect to it. And let's also take a moment to understand what's working pretty okay, or even well, and maybe even better than in the office or in the lab, right? Take a moment as well, and this is sometimes a bit harder, but take a moment to write down also what works well, okay? What works well. And it can be as interesting as I had somebody saying, when my cat is on my feet and my feet are warm, I'm pretty working well from home, which I couldn't do in the office. Okay, if that works for you, that's great, right? So you don't have to come up here with a scientific reasoning of what's working well. It can be very, very simple, right? So let's just take a moment. So in case I still see people coming in, so we are above 110 people now. So if you just entered, please take a moment and go on menti.com and check out the code 1544900, or you can also use the QR code on the right-hand side and put in 1 or 2 or 3 things that work well for you working from home, okay? Because the first level is understand the challenges we have that we just did, but also understand what's working well, okay? So what is working well in the home office? And we can see this cloud here now growing, so that seems to be as if working from home gives us more flexibility, right? I can also see less distractions, right? So we have maybe certain new distractions coming in as we have seen them before, but it seems as if we also have less of other distractions that we used to have or that we have in the lab or in the office, right? No commute is also quite big here. I can also see quiet and silence here as ways that work well. No traffic, right? No traffic. Better ways to build a routine. We can see this as well. And the cloud is growing. Taking breaks and taking naps. More time with the family. All right, right? So we see there is lots of challenges there when we do our PhDs or when we do our research. But at the same time, there seem to be things as well that actually work quite well here, right? So please, if you are still writing, please keep writing, because as this cloud is growing, I will take a screenshot of this and I will make it part of the presentation that you guys will all get after our session today, okay? So thank you so much for writing this down. And it's one thing on your takeaway sheets, you might want to write down already your 3 things that actually work quite well, right? Because the world will not be the same even after the pandemic. And in terms of working, there will be a blend of working in the office and working from home. And if you're conscious about what works well in the office or in the lab, connecting with colleagues, etc., but you also know what is good working from home, you will make a more conscious decision on which days, of course, in line with your supervisor or your team, but when you have days when you're at home, it's quiet, no traffic, you can focus on your research, and maybe there's other times when you want to connect with your colleagues and find other ways, okay? So this is already a first takeaway, understanding the challenges, but also appreciate what works well and writing it down, because we tend to forget this, okay? Now, let me add to these things and let me give you some insights of what else you could be doing and also how design thinking can help you to actually better deal with those challenges, okay? So as you can see here, I have already 2 blank slides and I will copy and paste the clouds in there so that you can also have them documented. Now, what we're going to do today is based on a course at Stanford University. It's kind of like a mix, right? I talked about already about creativity in research. That's something I mentioned already. And the other one is how can I use design thinking for my own future? And one of the most popular courses at Stanford was called Design Your Life. It was the most popular course at Stanford. And I worked with the people at Stanford back in 2018. I'm still there as a visiting fellow, but then kind of like brought it over to Switzerland, founded a life design lab, wrote another book, Life Design, that's now available in German, but we are in the process of also having it translated in English. And we also take the approach way further and focus on design your home office, for example, that we are just doing, or even for those who are interested, design your retirement is also part of it, or design your sabbatical, and all the insights you get on the lifedesignlab.ch. But how does this look like? If people attend these kind of workshops that we're now doing a mini version of, people reduce their anxiety, they increase their hope for the future, and also better regulate their emotions. And they're also more thankful, as in counting your blessings, more thankful for what they have in their lives. And you can see here the biggest impact is on the notion of agency. And agency means actually self-efficacy. It means self-responsibility. So with this program, you also create a self-responsibility in people, that they find ways to proactively manage themselves from the home office, okay? And if you do that, you actually also significantly increase something that's called psychological capital. If you apply design thinking to your research, if you apply design thinking to your home office, you can increase your psychological capital, which consists of self-efficacy, also hope, optimism, and also resilience, okay? This is really important. This is one of our pieces of research. If you use design thinking and positive psychology, you can increase your psychological capital. And if you have more psychological capital, you also have better job performance, better job satisfaction, and you also have more commitment to your organization, so to the university, for example, right? So this is just a little bit of research behind of what we're doing today. Now, I've been, as I said, I've been doing this with the International Red Cross, with Nike, with the United Nations, and they also had different foci. Some said it was more about isolation or individual responsibility, as you have just seen. For Nike, it was more about improving sales performance, for example. Or at the United Nations, it was a lot about productivity and also continuous learning in a way, okay? And today, we're basically looking into these ways, and we're basically looking into the best of these approaches. Now, having said this, now we talked about how can we learn something from outside academia, maybe from outside of research, right? Because usually most innovations come from outside your own industry. Now let's look into what can we learn from this guy here, right? This guy is Scott Kelly. You see his home office. You might want to Google Scott Kelly, and you find these pictures, and you might want to print it on top of your desk, and you might want to use this as a daily reminder, comparing your home office situation with his, and maybe you feel better about it, right? And I've talked to him about what can we learn from an astronaut about home office? And this is in German, but I would translate this instantly. The first thing he said is structure your day, right? That's the first thing he says. First thing he said, you need to structure your day. You don't have to structure every second, every minute, but you have to have building blocks of working time and non-working time, right? He even says, create your own pace. So create your own speed. And he's very conscious about energy. That's why one of the first things we're going to look at in a moment is how can you manage your energy more consciously? Because energy is really at the very core of your everyday performance, but also of your emotional and mental health. He even says the NASA scientists are very keen on understanding the sleep patterns of astronauts, right? Because they say if an astronaut is not sleeping enough or not at the right time, it has severe effects on the cognitive abilities, on the emotional mood, and on the interpersonal relationships. That's why we will always look into energy, but also sleep, right? Because if you want to make sure you have the cognitive capacities for your research, you want to be rather in a good mood, to be energetic, to be positive about your research, and you want to manage the interpersonal relationship, maybe with family members or your supervisors, then it's a good way to think about structuring your day and using energies for this, right? The third thing he says, as an astronaut, I think it's a bit ironic. He says, you have to go outside because otherwise you're going to get insane. And he couldn't go outside. He still had his MP3 player. For those who still know what an MP3 player is, it's almost like Spotify in an offline mode. And he had the sound of birds and trees in the wind on his player to remind himself of the beauty of nature, right? So, and we are in a home office where we can go outside, right? There's a very nice book. It's called The Nature Fix, okay? The book is called The Nature Fix. And the book is collecting ideas from all studies that have been done about benefits of being in nature by yourself or in a team, right? And one of the very simple studies, but I think it's very effective, is if you go outside on a daily basis for 20 minutes, okay? If there's one thing for you to take away, if there's only one thing from today, from our session, if you go outside once a day for 20 minutes, it will have a severe increase in your immune system, so physical health, but also in your mental health, okay? So if you can squeeze in 20 minutes in the morning, in the lunchtime or in the evening, at some point, that can really help you with that, okay? If you cannot go outside, you might still want to get the de-stressing, the anti-stress effect of nature by going to a website called noisely.com, okay? Noisely.com. I can even show it to you. If you go on noisely.com, and let me just go back to our screen share here. This one is still growing. If you go on noisely.com, it's a good way to help you to focus. And you can play the sound, for example, of trees, of a forest. You can also imagine rain, the thunderstorms, or the wind, right? And the interesting thing is, if you just listen to those sounds, noisely.com, if you listen to those sounds, it has already an anti-stress effect, okay? Because we are human beings, we are tied to nature. So if you want to de-stress for a moment, you might just want to sit and listen to the sound of nature, right? That's something you can do as well. Then number 4, he says, you need a hobby or you need a side project that gives you meaningfulness, right? This is what we're going to be looking at in number 3, which is all about meaningfulness. And the meaningfulness could be through a side project, okay? There's a very interesting piece of research about side projects. Usually people thought if you are a researcher and you engage in a side project that might have nothing to do with your research, it takes too much energy away, right? But now there is a recent study by a very highly profiled journal, the Academy of Management Journal, that shows if you engage in a meaningful side project, it actually has spillover effects. So it will actually increase your work performance in your full-time job, okay? And we will be looking into what your side projects could be like. And this 6-year-old Elia will have a very interesting side project for us to be inspired by, right? Number 5, he says, take a diary. So write down your thoughts on a daily basis, right? For those who do this and it works out, that's great. And in case you try this, but it doesn't work, I have one small intervention for you today. It's called 3 Good Things. And 3 Good Things, I've studied positive psychology. 3 Good Things is the best intervention for positive psychology. Why? Because you capture 3 things that are working well in your day. And you do this only for 7 days in a row. Every night you sit down for 10 minutes. I'm going to explain it to you in detail later, but you sit down, you write down 3 things that go well, and you do it for 7 days in a row for 10 minutes. So it's a very small investment. And the effects are crazy because you get a significant increase in your well-being on one hand, and you get a significant decrease in depressive symptoms in case you would have them. And that lasts for 1 month, 3 months, even 6 months or more, okay? So you do this for 7 days, and I've done this 2 times, and it lasts for more than 6 months. So this is something I can really recommend to you, especially to stay mentally and emotionally healthy, right? Especially that's kind of sometimes tough maybe in the home office. And the last one, he says, take time for social contacts. That's why we will be also looking into our own social support network. And we will be looking into how we can increase our well-being through social support. So these are our 3 main topics for the rest of our session now. We structure our day with energy, we have social support, and we add meaningfulness to our everyday lives through side projects and 3 Good Things. And before we're going to do this, I come to this lady here on the left-hand side. Her name is Brea Larson. And I had just Brea as a guest speaker at the MBA program at Stellenbosch University, where she talked about how to bring the Olympic mindset to the home office, right? And I'm going to give you her 3 takeaways, right? Number one, I mentioned already, she says, at the very core of athletic performance is hydration. Her coaches always ask her, Brea, where's your bottle of water? Where's your bottle of water? Because sometimes when we are hungry, we're actually not hungry, we're just dehydrated. So make sure you get enough water in, at least 2 to 3 liters a day, pure water or tea if you prefer that, right? So hydration is the first thing for sustainable athletic, but also cognitive performance that we have to have as researchers, right? Number two, she says, take regeneration as important as performance. She is a swimmer, so she won the gold medal, and she's a swimmer. And she says, if I want to have sustainable performance and productivity, I need to build in regeneration for my body and my mind to be able to perform again. And I think it nicely applies to us as researchers as well. If we want to be not only productive for like a day or two, but sustainably, fill in your, and if you can just fill in your agenda, make that 20-minute slot for taking a walk, or make that 20-minute slot for listening to music, or whatever else you would like to have. She actually says, and I like this, feel free to copy this. She says, have a list of things that lift your spirit. A list of things that lift your spirit. Listen to music, going outside, playing with your dog, playing with your children, etc., making a nice meal. And then when you have 10 minutes or 15 minutes in between, go to that list and just take one of it and just do it, even if it's just for 10, 15 minutes, okay? And number three, she says, you can have all the friends in the world and family members and everybody supports you like her. But in her case, she says, if you jump in the pool, you're all by yourself. You're the one who has to perform. And it's the same for us. I mean, we're not jumping in the pool, I guess, but we're sitting in front of a computer or we're reading papers and we are by ourselves. Of course, it's great to have a husband, a wife, children, sisters and daughters and everybody who support us, but we are by ourselves. That's why she says, be your best friend and cultivate healthy self-talks, right? I like to do one exercise with her that we call be the DJ of your inner sound, where we kind of like map our inner voices. What voice do you have in your head or in your heart or in your gut? What kind of voices do you have? Positive or negative, perfectionist voice, etc. And then what are ways for us to better deal with those voices, right? There's also something we do in the Design Your Academic Future. We also make 2 exercises on how can I manage my self-conversation? How can I have better, healthy self-talk, okay? So that was the 3 pieces of advice from the Olympic mindset for our researcher lives. Take care of nutrition, take regeneration as important as performance, and finally, cultivate healthy self-talk and be your best friend, because you have to deal with yourself every day, every morning, every time you do something that you love, every time you do something that you maybe not like. And so you have to deal with yourself every day, okay? And then we will be also looking into what can we learn from 6-year-old Elia on meaningful side projects. Now let's just go into the topics 1, 2, 3, okay? Let's start with how can we structure our day with energy? How can we be more conscious about our physical, but also emotional and mental energy, okay? And I would like to use that managing your energy to structure our day, to boost productivity, but also increase our well-being. And one of the core elements of doing this is actually understanding increasing our awareness of our energy. So what is our physical, emotional, mental energy? What chronotype are we? And maybe, and very central, how does my own energy curve look like? What is my prime time, my high time? I would explain this in a moment, right? How can I better deal with tasks and to-dos? And if you don't believe me, you might want to believe a Harvard Business Review article that's called Manage Your Energy, Not Your Time, okay? I would even say manage your energy first, and then you might want to manage your time, okay? So energy, I think, is really something that's overlooked too much. And in this book, I even wrote an entire chapter on energy competence, because I think it's a very, very huge leverage factor that is overseen by too many people, right? Here's the article again, manage your energy, not your time, okay? Now, how do we do this? A central element is understanding your energy curve. depending on when you get up in the morning. I will show you my curve right now, okay? But this is based on my chronotype. We will figure out your chronotype in a moment. And I will use this to explain the key concepts of your energy curve. This is how my energy curve looks like. You can see here how my day unfolds. So I'm getting up around 7, 8 o'clock. I go instantly in something that's called prime time. This is the time in the day when we have our highest energy. Everybody of you has 2 to 3 hours a day when you have your highest energy. For me, it's in the late morning. For some of you, it's in the early morning. For some of you, it's in the afternoon or in the evening, right? We will look into this in a moment. But what's really important here is whenever we speak about energy, we always speak about physical, when you are between completely awake and completely asleep. It's a time when your nervous inner critique brain is half sleeping, so you're more creative. Alpha time is a good time for what is called diverging thinking. Diverging thinking, which is all about creating ideas. Sometimes you might even in the evening have an idea, you're like, oh, where's this coming from, right? It's because half of your brain was sleeping. And I have this on a regular basis, just yesterday evening, I'm not kidding. And what I do is I use an app called Audio Memos, and I would send myself a voice message. So I get it out of my head, so it's documented somehow. You can also send an email to yourself. But the good thing is you can sleep better because it's out of your head, you can sleep, and you can look at it back again the next day, right? So you're more relaxed about this, okay? So you can see now energy competence is all about understanding your energy curve. When are you in your 5-star energy, your 3-star? It's almost like a hotel ranking. And you have a prime time and a high time with high energies. You also have a low time when your body and your mind needs to relax, right? But the interesting thing is this. If you look into this curve now, it will show you that as a human being, and I guess researchers are also human beings. I'm not sure sometimes if I look at myself, but as a human being, we cannot be high performing all day, every day. It's just not possible, right? You see here from the curve, I'm just redrawing the curve. You have phases of high energies, phases of low energies, high again, and then low again, right? So the first implication is if you want to have healthy and sustainable performance, knowing when you have high energies and save them for your PhDs, for your research, if you can, but also using low times, as we will learn in a moment, where you can get still stuff done, but just more things that are not so complicated, right? You can still get stuff done, right? Some of you might be saying now, well, but you know, sometimes I have very intense days because I have a conference deadline or I need to submit something. Yes, that exists. That is called hyper-aggressive energy. So your body and your mind, they can give you that energy, like high energy all day, every day for 2-3 days, right? But it's high energy and also tension. You have tension. Oh, there's the deadline. And that is okay for 2-3 days or 4 days, but your body and your mind needs to relax afterwards. You need to live in line with your energy, right? If you ignore this, so if you're in hyper-aggressive energy for a few days, weeks, months, this is the best strategy to have mental health issues and to have burnouts, okay? So one of the ways to prevent you from burnout or mental health issues is to understand your energy curve and live more in line with this. Of course, it's not always perfect. And maybe you have other constraints like family, side business, supervisors, and you cannot choose everything, of course. And I'm not saying you have to do this all day, every day, perfect, you know? But if you just start by understanding when is my prime time and how can I protect this, this could be already a very good start, right? And speaking about understanding when your prime time is, I'm chronotype 3. So my prime time is in the late morning. Yours could be the same or could be very different. Let's look into chronotypes, right? Let's look into which chronotype are you. I am number 3, and the chronotype is a strong correlation between preferred get-up time and your prime time. Remember, prime time is the time when you have your highest energy, right? So I like to get up around 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then my prime time is not 6 hours. My prime time is just 3 hours, usually from 10 to 1. I'm just in my prime time. It's just finishing soon. 10 to 1 or 11 to 2. Okay, so that's me. And maybe you're like, oh, this is me too, right? Could be. Or you're more the early morning people, so you like to get up at 5, 6, or 7. Then your prime time is most likely very much after you wake up. So if you like to naturally wake up at 5, your prime time might be most likely straight at 5 o'clock. I had researchers on my course, and I've done this course now with hundreds of people around the world. I've had people saying, I get up at 5 and then I commute to my research institute. And now that I have done this course, I know that I'm wasting my energy because in my commute, I cannot work. So those people sometimes say, I stay home and work those first 2-3 hours from home because this is my prime time. And then I would commute to work when I'm in my low time. Okay, that's interesting. And that's something that really has a very strong effect, right? Or if you're more a late person, like my wife, my wife, Kim, she's you wake up at 10, 11, or 11, 12. So my wife likes to get up at 12. So she's a strong 5. And she likes to work in the middle of the night, right? So that's also possible, right? So either you're 1 or 2, more like a morning person, or you're like a 4 or 5, an evening person. Now, the thing is, some of you might be thinking, hey, I'm a 5 if I can choose, but because of my research, I have to be a 3 or a 2, right? And the good news is you can change your chronotype, but if you want to change this, you need discipline, okay? You need discipline. You should live your new way 7 days a week. And usually latest after 21 repetitions, you might change into a new chronotype. It's possible, and my wife is constantly doing it, but you will always have your natural chronotype, right? So if you change, so she likes to get up at 12 and works in the middle of the night. Oh, it keeps snowing again in Switzerland. So she likes to get up at 12 and works in the middle of the night from like 1 to 4. This is her prime time. And when she changes to getting up at 8, as she's doing it right now, her prime time also moves from the middle of the night to the late morning, right? So you can change this. It will never be as good as your natural one. You can change this, but it needs discipline in 7 days a week, okay? If you want to work on your own energy, my piece of recommendation is this, and you might want to write this down. Take a separate piece of paper, okay? And you can call this your energy curve. And you might want to write down, this is T for time, midnight, 6 in the morning, lunchtime, 6 in the evening, and midnight again. And then you have your 5-star energy, your 3-star energy, your 1-star energy, just in a hotel. You might want to create your energy curve. And you might want to think about, when is the time that I get up? And when is the time that I go to bed? When is my highest energy? So I'm just doing it for myself. You can do it for yourselves. When do I have like a low time? And when do I have good energy again, right? And then you can draw your own energy curve. And you could write down, when is my prime time? When is my high time? When is my low time? And when are my alpha times, right? That's something you could be doing. And then you could ask yourself one central question. And that central question is, in design thinking, we call this problem statement. It's called, how might I? Okay, that's something you might want to ask yourself in terms of your energy. How might I protect my prime time, for example? How might I better enjoy my low time? How might I use my alpha time, etc., right? Now it's a very short session that we're having together, but in the productive PhD and also in the Design Your Academic Future at the ADA, we spent half a day on the whole notion of energy. We will spend time on the energy curve. We also look into energy givers and energy suckers and at the end of the week, honestly, most people report back that the whole notion of energy was very central to their productivity in the research, but also to their mental health. Staying sane, being kind to yourself, not asking yourself to perform in the low time, for example. I hope this helps, and I hope this makes sense. Let me just add one final bit on the notion of energy competence. So here I was redrawing my curve again, and then I was adding 3 things here at the top, because we have so-called 3 levels of mind work, okay? And 3 levels of mind work are very important if you want to increase your productivity in your research, because not all our tasks require the same amount of mental and emotional energy, right? Some are more routine tasks, so that they almost require no effort. Then we have a bit more demanding tasks. And this is important now for us as researchers, we have also tasks where we have to come up with something new. So there's a certain level of novelty, and we have to be proactive about something. Proactive in pushing your research topic, proactive in trying to get a guest lecture somewhere to understand how lecturing could be looking for you, right? And this is just my last piece of recommendation, is see if you can manage to put those novel tasks into your prime times, the demanding tasks into your high times, and everything else, every routine task, you can basically do any other time, right? Even in your low time, you know, you're not like dying or something, you're still in an okay energy, but just lower than your 5-star energy, right? So that's something I would recommend to you to understand, better allocate your tasks according to your energy, okay? All right, so that was the first part and the biggest part by far. And let me just briefly go back to our astronaut, okay? Let me just briefly go back to our astronaut. Remember, we talked about how can we structure our day? Oops, what's happening here? How can we structure our day using energy and also when to sleep, right? This is what we have kind of done now. Now, for the last 10, 15 minutes, we will be looking into social support network. And we will be also looking into meaningfulness through side projects and through my favorite exercise from positive psychology called 3 Good Things. Now let's look into social support network. This is important for us as researchers. Why? First of all, because research is also, of course, as a PhD, you're by yourself, but you have to have people that you can reach out to get support. Some people that are giving you support in your research, but some people have no idea about your research. They just take care of you because they like you. They like just to chat with you, okay? And let's just do one exercise, okay? And we might even want to do this together. So if you have a piece of paper right now, and please a separate paper than your takeaway sheet, please write down your social support network. And I will start with this in a moment, okay? First, let me explain why taking care of our relationships is so important. There is a very famous study by a group of researchers at Harvard University. This piece of research is already going on for 80 years. For 80 years. And they're looking into people between they're 16 years old, 16, until they pass away. And they're talking to them on a regular basis. They give them surveys, they observe them, they even take the medical data, and they try to understand what distinguishes people in general, people with a high level of life satisfaction compared to average and low level of life satisfaction. And they found, interestingly, there was one component that separates those people. And this one component is the quality of the relationships. And it's not only romantic relationships, it's also friends, family, co-workers, neighbors, etc., right? And those who had a perceived level of high quality of relationship had above average life satisfaction, right? At the age of 50, it was even a better determinator. Your medical data was not as good as the quality of relationship. So at the age of 50, you can tell from the quality of the relationship of the age of 50, you can tell more about the life satisfaction of somebody getting old than the medical data, okay? That's why I think for us as researchers in general, but also very particularly in the world, it's good to understand how are my relationships, how do they look like? And for this, I would like to draw a social support network. And feel free to do this with me, okay? So if you have a piece of paper in front of you, you might want to put this into landscape format as I'm doing it here. And you might want to call this social support network, okay? And in your social support network, you can draw yourself in the middle as a sticky person or as a smiley, as you like. I call this Sebastian. I just call this Sebastian because it's me, okay? Please don't call this Sebastian, just call it yourself. Put just your own name or your nickname or whatever. And then I have the inner circle here. and I have the outer circle that even goes beyond the paper, right? And I make a distinguish left and right. And you can then call this one literally your inner circle. And this one is your outer circle. And on the left-hand side, you have your private contacts. And on the right-hand side, you have your professional contacts. Okay, professional. And this exercise is all about increasing your awareness of who is in your social support network. And what I would like you to do, I mean, now we just have a short session, but I'm just going to give you 1 or 2 examples, and you might want to do this after the workshop, is you want to put in people, and inner and outer circle is not the physical distance, it's more the emotional distance. And you want to write down the people. So let me just write down my wife. So her name is Kim. And then you write down, how are they supporting you? So maybe from her, hopefully I do get love, or maybe she's listening to me, but we can also be very stupid together, right? Which is a good way of support, right? But I might also look into the professional side and see like, oh, there is a friend of mine, his name is Tom, and he knows a lot about how to run experiments. And I need this for my research, right? Or I have somebody who's an expert in, so that's Stephanie, and she knows a lot about Zoom, maybe, right? Or there's somebody in my research team, Monica, and with her I can just talk and just have a coffee, right? So you can see sometimes it's a bit more transactional support. People have a certain expert knowledge, that's great. And sometimes it's more emotional support, like people have no idea what you do in your research. And it's also good that there is people like this. And you might have people in your private area, your grandmothers, your sisters, your friends, your neighbors. And it's just good to have a chat with them, or have a beer or a glass of wine or water. And again, here, as an application of design thinking, you might also add the how might I again, right? You might also say, how might I find somebody who supports me in the topic of my literature, in the topic of my research method? Or how might I strengthen my relationship with my brother or with my grandmother, right? So it could be existing relationships, or could be also getting new relationships there, right? And the interesting piece about this exercise is this: you do not even have to reach out. So simply by drawing the social support network, you are already increasing your well-being and life satisfaction, right? Because you're just increasing your awareness of who you could reach out to, okay? So that was a small part of number 2. Remember the astronaut, taking care of your social connections, right? And that brings me to the last part in the next 8-9 minutes on meaningfulness. How can I create meaningfulness in my life? And there is many options. I show you 2 of them. One is side project, and the other one is the 3 good things. So building meaningfulness through side projects. Imagine this is your research, okay? You might either engage in a side project that's part of your work, right? That's something you could do. Maybe it's kind of half and half, or maybe it's even outside your work, right? No matter what you do, the interesting thing is any kind of side project will have so-called spillover effects, okay? And the spillover effect is that it will increase your job performance, okay? If you engage in a meaningful side project, it will not only give you pleasure because you're enjoying that side project, it will also spill over to your main job, your PhD, your postdoc, your lecture position, maybe even your startup, whatever, and increase your performance there as well, which is a very recent and very cool insight that is from the Academy of Management journal. Just came out, I think it was in March, I think this year, which is really cool. Now, how can such a side project look like? I'm going to give you one example for something at work and a few examples for outside of work. So at work, and this is again German, but don't worry, this is an example from a company called McKinsey. And there is a consultant at McKinsey, and he realized in his clients, his young clients, that they had a lot of stress, and they wanted to find better ways to deal with stress. And also they wanted to find better ways for their personal development. And what he did is, instead of turning this into an official project, he basically said, I'm going to make this my side project. And he basically engaged and said, okay, let's just meet for 2 hours, right? And you might want to do the same in your research lab, in your team. Maybe you want to talk about, let's make a circle of people and we exchange about better dealing with stress or better dealing with our development, right? Could be. And so he did this for 2 hours informally. He didn't get any money. And people liked it. So they said, okay, let's do another session. So again, another 2 hours. Eventually, this would turn into some iterations into a one-day workshop. And now this idea turned into the Young Leader Forum, that is an established format at McKinsey globally, where young leaders exchange about what is stressing them and how to develop. That part even doesn't matter. The important part is, if it gives you meaningfulness, engage in it, spend your time on it. You might not even get money for this, but it will give you meaningfulness and it will give you more engagement at your main job, right? In Corona times, you might even do something like Matthew Muspratt from the home office, because we cannot travel. He basically went on a cross-country road trip via Google Street View, right? So he went from New York to San Francisco, and it was a bit of a bigger project. So for 72 hours, he was clicking himself through Google Street View and had like a virtual road trip, you know? So he was sitting in front of his computer with a Coke or a beer or something and just enjoyed this, right? So a side project could be also something completely disconnected to your research, right? Could be. Or as you can see here, this is my own side project. This is a Instagram. Now we have a bit more followers, but it's my wife and me. We live in a neighborhood called Wipkingen in Zurich, and we really love it. And we always wanted to create a website from it, but it was too complicated and we never did it. And so we ended up having this Insta one with just a few sheets of our favorite bars, the sky over it. We even started to make t-shirts and hoodies, right? So if you want to check it out, it's on this website. And the funny thing is, now we have 50 followers, but guess what? It doesn't matter. I don't even care if somebody's following me, but having Instagram as a container to put information up there that really matters to me, like my neighborhood, that is giving me meaningfulness, just as I talk about it right now, which is crazy, right? So maybe there's something you might want to do for your family, for your community as well, right? Doesn't have to be Instagram, could be. And then we have 6-year-old Elia. She likes to draw monsters, right? She's a big fan of drawing monsters. And at some point, her mother said, oh, you have done so many monsters and your grandmother cannot see them anymore. And what they did is they actually came up with a website. It's called Monster, and then it's the German word for images. It's called bilder.ch, monster images or monster builder. And then they have just one page about her, the 6-year-old, and one page about the monster builder shop. And you can buy those things for 5 francs, which is like $5, $4, and the Ninja of Death, for example. And I talked to the mother, and she said it gave them as a family so much more meaningfulness. Whether you have a website or not, now they are actually sold out on all the projects. But let's even look into what could be your side projects. Is there any side projects that you are doing already, or any side projects that you would like to do? Maybe we can take a moment and collect your ideas for your own side projects. Maybe you can go on Menti one more time and put in what is a side project for you that gives you meaningfulness that you're doing already, maybe something like that. Or what is a side project that you would like to be doing in the future, right? Maybe you're thinking about this already for a long time. And remember, it can be very research related, can be like half and half, or can be completely private. Let's collect for a moment, what kind of side projects would you like to do, or what kind of side projects are you doing already? Let's just take a moment to understand your side project. What kind of side projects are you doing already? Or what kind of side projects would you like to do? Yeah, menti.com. All right, I can see some things already coming in. So things that you're already doing or you would like to be doing. We can see gardening becoming bigger. So probably quite some of you have mentioned gardening, baking, and cooking. I have also heard people rediscovering their love for food during the quarantine. Academic coaching. I can see your dog, swimming, learning Korean, learning the piano. So they're great projects out there. Drawing, even Sudoku. Yeah, you see, this is great. This is awesome. This is really fantastic. So if you're still writing, please keep writing, because this cloud is going to grow in the background and I will copy and paste it and put it in the slides. But time-wise, let me just wrap it up and come to the last part of our session, which I mentioned already, which is the 3 good things, right? The 3 good things. And if you want to do the 3 good things, you might just want to take a piece of paper and you call them 3 good things. And it's basically writing down what has happened between when you woke up this morning and right now. What were 3 things that went well? And what you do is you write down what happened. You also write down how it made you feel, and also why it came to pass or why it made you feel this way. Okay. And in the end, you also give it a title. So if I say, for example, I'm going to write down my first good thing today is I was walking on the street. There was a bus coming by and a stranger was smiling at me. Okay, so that's 1 or 2 sentences what happened. I don't know, how did it make me feel? I felt warm and had to smile. It was pretty sweet, actually, pretty nice, right? So there's another 1 or 2 sentences. And then 3, why did it make you feel this way? You'd be like, I don't know, I guess I felt connected to this person. Okay, so you felt connected to this person. So again, 1 or 2 sentences. And then you can give it a title, like stranger on the bus, or happy connection, or surprising moment, right? And then you would do this again for another episode. And also for another episode, and everything together shouldn't be more than 10 minutes. Okay, so you're just writing it down. And I can tell you this, if you do this, as I said before, you increase your well-being and you decrease depressive symptoms for at least 6 months. And I think this is also in line with the philosopher Seneca, who says, don't try to live as long as you can, right? He's saying try to live as wide and as conscious as you can. And I can tell you this, I've done this 2 times now. If you're looking back after a week into 21 episodes that went well, this is a nice way for you to slow down your life. Maybe nice things from your research, maybe outside of research. You're more conscious. Time is not flying over weeks and months in the pandemic. You're more conscious of what's happening. You will be also seeing patterns within the things that work well. Is it always with animals? Is it always with other people? Is it colors, etc.? And in the future, you will also look more for the positives. And this has been done in Africa, Europe, Asia, Americas, different age groups, all over the world. And every time, significant increase of well-being, significant decrease of depressive symptoms for at least 6 months. So that's really something I can really recommend. And then really coming to the end, with all the things you have seen now, you have also already created your own portfolio of mental strength and resilience strategies. Why? Because we have looked into our energy focus, using our prime times and high times, and also enjoying maybe our low times. We looked into relationship focus, so understanding our social support network and consciously designing support into our life. And finally, the meaning focus, be it through side projects, all the three good things, as we have seen, increasing well-being and life satisfaction. And with this, we have designed our portfolio of mental strength and resilience. And I really hope that you can then consciously pick and choose from these strategies. I thank you so much for the session. And talking about meaningfulness, one of my side projects is that I run Corona special workshops, and I run them for free for people who have lost their jobs because of Corona. If you know somebody, please guide them through the Life Design Lab website. I will, every month, every 2 months, I run workshops for free for people who have lost their jobs because of Corona. And feel free to also be in touch by email, or you can also connect with me on LinkedIn or also on Instagram. As Corina has mentioned this already before. And I really, really hope that this session was useful for you. I really hope, as I said in the beginning, it's all about you, right? So I really hope that in this 1 hour, or a little bit more, there was something in it for you. Feel free, of course, to check out Creativity and Research if you like, and feel free to check out the courses, the Productive PhD that I'm running at the ADA African Doctor Academy, and also Design Your Academic Future, where we do these things, and we even go way beyond using visual thinking for your research, etc. Thank you so much for now. And with this, I will also stop screen sharing. You will get the slides, and I'm happy to be in contact with Amalsha and also see what kind of questions you guys had, and hoping that we have the time to answer some of your questions. Thank you. And Amalsha, you can let me know if there were questions. I saw there were quite some chats.
There is a few.
On.
Yes, Prof. So the first question is from Prof Obengo. He says about the energy types, managing energy, then is something really necessary to know how to do in the beginning rather than later stages of research life. Is that correct? So he's asking if managing energy is something that you should know in the beginning rather than later.
That's a very good question, and I thank you so much for this. I discovered the notion of energy competence in the middle of my PhD. And whenever I discovered it, it changed my life entirely, because I was more conscious in managing my energy, more conscious in saving the time, my prime time, and doing it for reading and writing, and being more kind to myself in low times, right? And I wish I would have known this from the beginning. And I'm running these workshops now at the African Doctor Academy, at Stanford, in Switzerland, in Asia. And the people I do it with are between 20 and 70 years old, right? And whoever I'm going to show it to them, the notion of energy competence, they always say, I wish I would have known this 5 years before, right? So I think the earlier you can start to be more conscious about this, the better. And I found that people in general appreciate this, but especially researchers appreciate this because they have a tendency for more freedom in managing their days on one hand, but they also have higher levels of managing themselves every day, right? We have to get up ourselves. We have to work on our research agenda. We have to convince people to get funding. We have to convince sometimes supervisors about our ideas. And so for us as researchers, that's why energy competence, is a good investment. And to answer the question, yes, the earlier the better. You might even want to experiment this before your PhD journey, but I would definitely recommend in the first year of your PhD to take care of this, because it will affect your research output and also your mental health. And also, to be honest, it will affect also your satisfaction in life in general.
Thank you, Prof. We have another one from Sisanda. She says she's in a season where she's juggling work and children, and she has a certain time allocated to do her research and PhD work. And so her question is, can I change my chronotype so that it aligns with the time I have, or is it set?
Yes, so we do have a chronotype. A chronotype changes when we are children and young adults. So usually that's also why schools have sometimes a problem, because usually children and teenagers are rather chronotype 4 and 5. So they like to go to bed late and also wake up late. That's also why it's very hard for them to wake up in the morning to go to school. And because of this, actually, the public schools in the United States and California changed the starting time of the public schools by 1 hour later, so that more children would be awake, right? So that's already interesting. However, when we reach the age of 20-25, our chronotype seems to be pretty stable. So we are either a morning person, 1 or 2, somewhere in between number 3, like I am, or like more like a 4 or 5, as my wife is, for example. However, even if you have a chronotype that is natural, you can change it. You can change it. So if you like to get up at 12, but actually your office requires you to wake up at 9, you can change from 12 to 9 or from 12 to 8. If you do this, however, you really have to be disciplined. So you have to get up at, let's imagine you usually get up at 11 and you have to get up at 7. Then you will take some time to adjust, be disciplined, do it every day, do it also on the weekends, I'm sorry. But and then after 21 repetitions, latest after 3 weeks, you will be in a new chronotype. And your prime time, your high time, they will adjust, right? If you don't do it on the weekend, and let's say you're going to wake up at 7 during the week and at 11 on the weekend, then you will always have a jet lag on Monday morning, right? A jet lag not coming from traveling to different time zones, but a jet lag coming from your weekend energy curve and your weekday energy curve. I have this sometimes too, so I need sometimes the Monday to kind of adjust, right? But if you want to be really changing it, I would recommend to keep it for 7 days a week. Sometimes I even have people, like just this morning, I had a PhD student from the United States, and she asked me, how can I make sure in my next 3 months, I have the productivity to really finish my PhD and to hand it in? And then we talk about chronotypes and having a schedule 7 days a week. It doesn't mean that you have to work 7 days a week, but you have to have the same time schedule, or let's say the same sleep schedule. And then of course, on one day you can also enjoy other things, but it's easier for your body and your mind if you keep the same schedule for 7 days a week. I hope this helps.
Thanks, Prof. Another question.
Yes.
So someone has asked, or Sasanda again, what is the best time to engage in like physical activity, like exercise? Is it during your prime time or your low time?
Very good question, and a question I am asked many, many times. So the question is, what do you want to get from your sports time? If you are up for improving your performance, if it's about, I don't know, running a 10K run and you want to get better, you might want to actually do this in your prime time and your high time, because this is when you have your highest performance. Actually, one of the fitness coaches of the soccer team Manchester United in the United Kingdom, they let, for example, some soccer players, let them shoot the penalty in certain times when they have their high times and prime times. So there's different people shooting the penalty on the weekends when it's Premier League, than in the Champions League when it's in the evening of the night, right? However, so if you want to do this in performance, then you might want to do this in your prime time and your high time. However, if you feel like you want to do sports more as a relaxation, so slow running to get your body moving, that could be a good way to do it even in your low time. Because in your low time, you have less cognitive capacity, you have less physical capacity, but you can still do something, right? So if you're looking for a way to integrate sports, or let's say body movement, even going for a walk into your days, using the low time, if it's not about athletic performance, then using your low time for sports is actually a good strategy.
Interesting.
I hope this is answering.
That's very interesting. I didn't even know about the soccer thing. That's pretty cool. Prof, another question. Nombuso asks if this is maybe linked to circadian rhythms, and she asks if it is, would re-entrainment have physiological implications?
Yes, so it actually works because we are human beings and we work in 90-minute rhythms, if it comes to sleep, but also if it comes to being awake. So it definitely is in line with this. And I think what's really important about this is, first of all, understanding what your current rhythm is, right? And also connecting it to the prime time, high time, and low time that you're having during the day. Because no matter who you are as a person, even if you're an athlete, a Nobel Prize winner, you do have those 2 to 3 hours windows once in a day, and also 2 to 3 hours windows once in a day for high time. So you have these 4 to 6 hours when you have your highest energy, okay? And it's really not about micromanaging every minute. it's really also when you're a busy person, for example, you don't have to make the perfect energy curve all day, every day. For most people, it's even almost impossible. But you might want to take in one component, for example, prime time, and you might want to focus on this. For example, in my case, my prime time is between 9 and 12, or 9 and 1 o'clock. This is my best time. And this is also time where I don't accept phone calls, usually not meetings other than with important people. And I really also need to have quietness. So this is a time when I get stuff done, and the rest of the day I can just take care of family, etc. Right? So yeah, so it's a 90-minute rhythm, and it's in line with this. Yeah.
Prof, thank you for that. So there's a question from Benedict who says there are some people that do shift work, so day and night work, but they alternate. So some days it's during the day, other days night. So he asked, can such persons have a specific prime time?
That's a very good question. I think these people, to be honest, looking into the whole notion of chronotypes, are just suffering a lot because you constantly have to adjust your chronotypes. You also have a natural one, but because of shift work, you have to change it. Maybe one shift is more in line with your natural chronotype, so it's easier for you to wake up and to work. And the other one is maybe a bit more difficult, or you're just in between, and both are a little bit difficult. So yeah, I think this is actually very hard if you do this, and it's also not very kind to your body and your mind. So I would probably say it depends on when the shift changes. If it's like every other week, so if every second week the shift changes, it will be very unhealthy for your body and your mind. So that will be a good strategy to try to see if you can stay in one shift for 3 weeks, so your body and your mind has time to adjust to that time, and then after 3 weeks or 4 weeks or maybe a few months, you can then switch to another shift. Okay, the worst would be if your shift changes 1 week to another. That will be very hard. But you will observe in yourself, talking about prime time, if you're in a certain shift or in another shift, that your prime time will adjust. It doesn't adjust over 2-3 days. That's just too. Nature is very patient, right? This is also how our bodies are. So you cannot change your prime times or your chronotypes and your prime times from one day to the other. It will always take probably at least a week and up to 3 weeks to change it. So I will probably observe myself pretty good and see when is my prime time depending on my shift, and whether you can use that prime time for your research or for other things you would like to do.
Thank you, Prof. So there's a question from Liana. So she says, I just can't get to work on anything unless I have checked my emails, but then I get distracted by answering some emails. Don't know how to stop this. And Christine Rogers also said she feels the same, that they get distracted by emails and just don't know how to go on after that.
Yeah, that's one thing that we really see a lot of times. So it depends on who you are as a person also, whether you need to have that hardcore version, right? If you need the hardcore version, then you want to use, for example, in the iPhone, there is a built-in part that's called screen time. And actually I'm using it, so I'm the same. And in screen time, you can limit the time per app on a daily basis. So for example, now I have 15 minutes per day for my emails, for example, right? Sometimes I have to do 2 times 15. So that's an option. There's also an app called Moment. And in that app, it also limits the amount of time that you spend on certain apps. So that's a hardcore version to say. Some people also like to call this opening hours. When is my opening hour for email? When is my not opening hour for emails? So another option would be also to say to yourself, okay, I have 2 opening hours per day. I don't know what it is, 9 to 9:30 or 9 to 10 or something else. And in this time I make emails, but I really have to stop at 10 and then move myself to something else, right? So that's also an option that works for some people. And for some who just really cannot change it, they need to even put the computer away and lock it somewhere to get some stuff done. I would probably always start to ask the question, but this is more like a coaching session, or when we do the courses at the ADA, we always have time to discuss things, also very personal things. So if she would be in my course, I would probably say, tell me more about your emails. What is it that's bothering you in your emails? Let's try to find out, is it because you have the fear of missing out, or what is it? And then we would find a way and we would say, how might I reduce my fear of missing out? Or how might I reduce the time of my emails? How might I, etc., etc. So in a workshop setting, we would have time to tackle this a bit more in detail. But otherwise, I would recommend apps that limit the amount of time to use it, have opening hours for emails and non-emails, and sometimes it's also a question of the inner voices, right, that we have had already with the Brea Larson. Be your best friend to say, why do I need to have those emails? And maybe I can replace them, okay? I hope these mini strategies help.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think we're running out of time now, so we're going to take it from here, and Corina is going to come on now quickly. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, I have my, okay. Prof, thank you. I just from the messages in the chat, I think this has really struck a chord with a lot of people, and I think it was a good way of spending our lunch hour on the first Wednesday in the month. So I think there's also a lot of appreciation just for you giving us very practical tips and tools. So to everyone that's in the chat, we will be sharing the video on our YouTube channel, also specifically so that people can then share the link and be sure to pass it on to people in their environments that they find might benefit from it. So from my side and from the ADA side, I just thank you so much, and I hope that you have a productive rest of your day in your home office. I'll certainly be going for a good walk this afternoon, and be doing it 20 minutes every day from now on, and also looking at my three things. I think that if it's such a powerful tool as you say, I think we should all be doing it. So thank you very much from myself and from all the participants. Yeah, any closing words from you?
Well, thank you, Corina, and thank you also, Marsha, for putting this together. It was really enjoyable. And as I said in the beginning, I hope there was something in it for everyone in the session. And as you just said, when I'm reading it in the chat now, there seems to be a lot of appreciation there. And I wish you guys all the best for your home office situation. I wish you all the best for your research journeys. Have a wonderful day, and maybe, who knows, see you at some point at the ADA. I would look very much forward to this. And thank you again, Amalsha and Corina. And bye-bye from snowy Switzerland. Hope to see you soon at some point in South Africa.
Hopefully very soon.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye,
Good.
guys.
Thank you,
Have a good
everybody.
day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.